Thein Sein. It'll be the first time an American president has visited the country. He'll also travel to Cambodia and to Thailand. Our State Department correspondent Kim Khattas has more.
This is the culmination of several years of efforts to try to encourage the Burmese to open up and embrace reform. And there was a lot of hope in the United States and, of course, in Burma itself and in the region that the steps towards reform in Burma were irreversible, and we started seeing the first signs of those steps towards reform last year when, for example, Aung San Suu Kyi, the Nobel Prize laureate, was released from house arrest, and she's now a member of parliament. It all started, of course, by a decision taken within Burma to open up, but it was very much encouraged by this administration in cooperation with countries in the region. A lot of neighbors of Burma were keen to help that process along. And the Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton herself, went to Burma at the end of last year in December. I traveled with her, and she wanted to see for herself how serious Burma's rulers were about reform, and she wanted to hear from Aung San Suu Kyi herself what she thought. And there was very much a feeling that this was serious and that it should be encouraged. And now we're seeing the ultimate reward for Burma, a visit by the American president.
Kim Khattas for us there. Aung San Suu Kyi has told the BBC that tolerance and the rule of law are crucial to ending the ethnic violence which has been scarring the west of Burma. The violence between Muslim Rohingyas and Buddhists in Rakhine State has forced more than 100,000 people from their homes and left dozens dead. Well, Aung San Suu Kyi was speaking to our correspondent Jonathan Head. He's now in Bangkok. Jonathan.
Mike, I've actually just come back from Rakhine State and had a pretty good look at the situation there, and I can tell you it is dire. You've got completely segregated communities, dreadful hardship from people who've lost their homes in an already very poor state. Most of the victims, Muslims, Rohingya Muslims, many of them an unrecognized minority, deep hatred, and the security forces which are really struggling to keep them apart, and in some cases have been accused of getting involved in this violence. It's an explosive situation, and it's quite clearly a real challenge for Burma's inexperienced new government. They really don't seem to be able to grapple with it or address the long-term problems. But Aung San Suu Kyi, because of her unique moral stature in Burma, the fact that she's intensely respected across all political divides there, is perhaps the one person whose voice might have an influence and whose voice many people say has been absent. I did catch up with her a few days ago in the new Burmese capital, Naypyidaw, and I pressed her really on this issue of why she wasn't willing to speak out in particular on the issue of the stateless status of the Rohingyas who are not recognized as citizens.
You're not used to getting press criticism, but you must have noticed the comments in the international media saying,
No, I've always had
saying that
press
you failed on this account because you haven't spoken out.
Oh, I won't speak out. And if people think that this is a failure, I'm ready to accept it.
But you have exceptional moral leadership here. You're urging for tolerance, for accepting of people who are disliked.
I'm urging tolerance, but I do not think one should misuse one's moral leadership, if you want to call it that, to promote a particular cause without really looking into the basic, the sources of the problems. I know that people want me to take one side or the other, so both sides are displeased because I will not take a stand with them. You just don't drive people out without reference to what the laws of the land are and without reference to what the needs of human rights are.
But shouldn't you be saying that more publicly, coming out state saying we shouldn't say this?
I have said this often enough, but also not forgetting that the Buddhist Rakhine have also been subjected to human rights violations by the authorities in the past, and of course both communities have violated human rights with regard to one another. And we need rule of law in the sense that any violations of human rights or of the law must be dealt with quickly and in line with the basic norms of justice. That is to say, justice must not only be done but seen to be done, so that people will feel secure that their rights are going to be protected.
Aung San Suu Kyi talking there, of course, to you, Jonathan. As you say, you're just back from Rakhine State. If she is not willing to take a stand on this, are you talking to anyone who can see a way through it?
No, that's the tragedy there. There are no community leaders who have that kind of power. In particular, I met people on the Rohingya side. They're in effect confined to ghettos now. huge numbers of Rohingya and other Muslim communities, it's not just the Rohingyas who've been targeted, have had their communities absolutely destroyed. And from the testimony they gave me, what are clearly planned, organised attacks, they say driven by Rakhine Buddhist extremists, the people supporting a Rakhine nationalist party. On the other side, on the Rakhine Buddhist side, there is deep historical dislike and resentment against the Muslim population. They bought into this official propaganda line that they're all illegal immigrants, even though many of the Rohingya were able to show me documents showing their grandfathers going to school in British colonial days. But Rakhine Buddhists believe they're illegal, that they simply don't fit, and that they must either leave or be segregated. And that intense feeling, the fact that two communities are completely separated now, does require somebody of stature to step in there. And even if they do, it will be a long and difficult process. Frankly, the Burmese government, although it is struggling to deal with it now, it's beginning to allow humanitarian aid through. They're simply allowing a stalemate, and you've got 110,000 people in really dire need. This is a long-term crisis. It won't be fixed by temporary separation, or, as Ms. Suu Kyi said, by simply putting more troops in there.
It's a very difficult time for this new Burma. Jonathan, thank you very much.